Everyone, and this is part two to the hidden meaning of Christmas because after I watched it again, I think it needs a little more explanation because I don't want to leave you hanging. And if you watch that one first, this will be basically a summary and an explanation. And now in the first one I told you that the hidden meaning of Christmas is the meaning of a spiritual awakening or raising of consciousness, Christ consciousness, a rebirth of your mind. And that's what the Bible is all about. That's what it's trying to teach you. That's this big secret that is being held. Now, why was it a secret? Because it's powerful. And people that don't know it are easily controlled because they don't know themselves. They're not in the know. In other words, people that don't know are ignorant. So if you don't know it, you're ignorant. We're all ignorant of something. None of us know it all. So if you're afraid of the word ignorant and afraid of saying I'm ignorant, then you're never going to learn, because you have to understand that first, that we are ignorant. We don't know it all. There are things we don't know. And one of the effects of not knowing this and not bringing your mind together in Christ consciousness is living in a left brain or right brain dominant mindset. And a left brain dominant mindset is strict, rigid skepticism. I don't need to know that. It's the most ignorant statement. That's the height of ignorance. I don't need to know that. Why? Why don't you need to know everything there is to know? What, are you afraid? I think some people are afraid. Anything done out of fear leads to chaos. So if you're afraid to have knowledge, then you're going to be ignorant. Simple as that. This knowledge is there for you to learn, and you can't be afraid to think that this knowledge is going to corrupt my mind. You've got to have some faith in yourself. Having no respect for yourself is what keeps you from learning more and being afraid to learn more, because you don't respect your own opinion. You think you can be persuaded by other people's opinions. People don't want to hear the truth. And the truth can be amazing. And that's why people don't want to know. They want to feel like their ego tells them that they already know it all. There's nothing more to know. I'm happy just the way I am. And many people will die without ever finding this out. Many, many people live their whole lives and never find out the secret of life. Never find out the hidden knowledge. Just ignorant to it their whole life. Some believe when you live that way, you end up coming back again in another life to continue learning and growing until you do learn this. Well, it's time you do. Now, another thing people will say is, well, if this is true, that the Bible and Christmas and Jesus were all telling me, trying to teach me about spiritual awakening or a raising of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, this thing that happens within us, if they were trying to teach us, why didn't they tell us? Why didn't Jesus say so? Well, the thing is, you haven't been listening, because he has. This is his message that he's been telling us. I told you about the single eye, the third eye, the pineal gland that is in the center here. The Hindus put a dot there to represent this. And that when that is activated, it activates chemicals in your brain. And this is done through the teachings of Jesus. That's what he's teaching you to do. And his words, he said, if thine eye be single, your whole body will fill with light. What was he talking about? Closing one eye and then your whole body will be filled with light? No, he was talking about the single eye. That's what they called it in the day, the pineal gland. They knew They dissected a head and they knew that pineal gland was used for something. They knew. And if thine eye be single, your whole body will be filled with light. He then went on to tell us that God is light. There is no darkness in him at all. God is light. Now why? The pineal gland, which is deep inside the brain in the center, has light receptors like our eye. Because not all light penetrates. So there is some light that penetrates all the way to the pineal gland. And science is still learning about it. They still don't know. They're still questioning it and studying it, and they're going to find out quite a bit, because a lot of people already know what they don't. Now, Jesus also said the kingdom of God is within you. What was he talking about? These are things he was telling you, but people didn't listen, or the people that taught this stuff didn't know what he meant, so they just skipped over it. These passages in the Bible talking about this awakening and that there is a God within you were skipped over by people that didn't know. But there are plenty of people that do know, and they're telling you, like I am. And there's others. I mean, there's more now than there ever was, because the internet is allowing information to be spread faster, and the truth is there. In the past, you had no access to the truth, so you just lived in ignorance. But now you do have access to the truth. You also have access to a lot of garbage and lies, and you have to filter them out. You have to filter them out by listening to them all and finding out what sounds true by comparing them and your own experience. Nothing beats that. And that's what I wanted to point out that I think was left out of the last video. That this is something that has been taught for thousands and thousands of years. They knew about this psychology of the human mind. And that's what the Bible's talking about. That's what Jesus is talking about. And that's what Christmas is about. So how did it turn into Santa Claus and reindeer and all this stuff? Well, over the years, people that didn't understand it changed it to what they wanted it to be. But there are some things that stayed, and that is the giving, the message of Jesus to give and help others and care about other people. Real care. I mean, we live in a world today where if a 5-year-old little girl gets blown to bits by a bomb and she's in a different country, then it's, oh, well, that's too bad. What a shame. But if it happens to your 5-year-old little girl, well, suddenly it's a big deal. Huge deal. Well, how come you didn't care for the other little girl when you only cared for your own? Selfishness. This is what Jesus was trying to tell us about. This is the path, the way, as he called it, to spiritual enlightenment. Getting your emotions in check. Making sure your emotions are what they say they are. You don't tell me you care about a little girl in another country who gets blown to bits if you allow it. Especially if you're one that's doing it. Order followers have created most of the world's evil and suffering. Not the people giving the orders. They're responsible too, but the order followers, the ones that actions are actually causing the evil, are most to blame. And this idea that order followers are supposed to be some type of honorable thing, to be in the military. I mean, it can be honorable to defend yourself and others, But if you're not defending and you're attacking, well, now you're a terrorist just like the other side. Both sides of every war think they're right, but the only one that's right is the one that is truly defending themselves against immediate danger. You have a right to that. You don't have a right to go around and blow up innocent children in other countries. We need to care. Care is what Jesus was talking about. That opens up other emotions in our body that we need to get in order to have this spiritual enlightenment of the mind, bringing the sacred masculine and sacred feminine principles, mindsets together, so that the frontal lobe of the brain starts working the way it should. This is a natural process that all human beings go through. Well, should, if they weren't held back by religions who didn't know what they were talking about, telling them that you don't need to know anymore. Everything those other people talk about is wrong. Just believe me, follow me, and give me your money. That's what religions have turned into, selfishness. And, you know, Jesus in the Bible, when they used the temple as a place to do business, he got upset, fashioned a whip, chased them all out, tipped the tables over, threw the money all over the floor, and told them to get out. You're not supposed to be using the church as a place of business to better yourself monetarily for material wealth. You're supposed to be helping others. So, this message about giving that comes around Christmas time is important on our path to a enlightenment or awakening or a raising of your consciousness, whatever term. There's a lot of terms used to describe what a spiritual awakening is. And some people will say it's not good to tell people the end result. It's better that they find it on their own. You know, and there's a lot of teachers that say, just show them the door and let them walk through. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm showing you the door, but I'm also showing you what's on the other side. And you may not understand it because you haven't experienced it. And no matter what I tell you and no matter what you learn, you won't understand it until you experience it for yourself, because it's a physical reaction taking place inside your mind. And what that is simply pulling out the old software that you gathered up until this point. And you've lived all these experiences. Those experiences created you into a person you were supposed to be. You thought you were supposed to be. But you got to take a step back at some point in your life and say, this is how my mind works. And these experiences created me into this. But maybe this is not what I want to be. Maybe I should just be who I am instead of what the experiences have created me to be. For example, let's pick a character like a motorcycle rider that wears leather and tattoos, and there is a character there that was built by their life experiences. They're trying to express themselves in a way that their life experiences have created. They don't have to be that way. They can change overnight if they change their minds. Hey, it's fine to be that way too. We judge other people by how they dress and how they act and their clothes that they wear, when the mind is the only thing that really, you don't really know somebody, even if they're right in front of you. And you got to remember that. And this is just a recap of the previous video. I just wanted to point out them things that they have been taught. And this message is out there. But it's going to be a very difficult one to understand unless you experience it yourself. A spiritual awakening is something that is done is something you have to do. No one can do it for you. And it is very hard work. So hard that most people don't They live their whole lives and never experience it. They miss out on one of the most amazing thing in life. And that is understanding who you are. Really understanding who you are. And you can't do that unless you have this realization about how your personality gets created through your thoughts. And it is psychology, and as long as the human mind has been around, people have knew this. That's why it goes back in time till as long as we can remember. The Egyptians knew this well, and they wrote everything down. Some people say, oh, we don't know how the Egyptians did a lot of the things they did. Of course we did. They wrote everything down. But people don't want to accept that they were very intelligent people. They want to think of them because they were 5,000 years ago or so that they couldn't be as intelligent. They couldn't have known anything more than us. Well, there's been knowledge that they knew that has been lost. And some say it's been deliberately lost because there are people that don't want you to know it. Because they want to control you and use you. How do they use you? How much of your labor is taken through taxes? That's slavery. If you can't opt out, and you can't say I want out, doesn't matter if you say I approve it or not. If you can't opt out and they're just taking it and they're going to take it by force whether you like it or not, that's theft. Slavery. It doesn't have to be that way. We could take care of everything we need to do without theft, without someone forcibly trying to take your money, if people care. That's why this is so important. You want to see a better world for your family, your children, future generations? Then we have to care. And that means opening our minds, listening to the message that all these religions have been trying to tell us, that I'm trying to tell you, that Jesus was trying to tell you, that Christmas is about, is it's time to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and look at what made us who we are. Do our emotions match what we say and do? That's what we have to think about this Christmas, because it's very important for everyone, for mankind, to move forward in a positive way. And I do this because the dark forces that want to make people suffer and step on other people and use them for slavery and take more of your labors, they're not going to stop. They're going to continue. I can guarantee you that. They will always be there. Heaven and hell exists right here on this planet. And your perception of how you see the world is what you get. Paradise is here. Everything you can imagine about paradise is already here. And everything you can imagine about hell is already here. There's no place called hell that you go to after you die. It's a perception of how you see the world. And some see it as a horrible place. So horrible, they'll even kill themselves. Because they don't want to be here. They'll suffer so badly that they are in hell. They'll commit suicide. And there are other people that see the world as a beautiful place. It's paradise, which it is. There is nothing we can imagine more beautiful than this place we live in. And some can see it, some don't. But there's a balance between the two that's called truth and reality. Okay, that's all for now. And please subscribe so you'll get some new videos when I put them up. You have a great day.